Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Indie Alaska is an innovative weekly web series capturing the diverse and colorful lifestyle of Alaskans. Real stories of everyday Alaskans at work and play. Supported in part by Alyeska Pipeline Service Company.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us here for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. Yesterday's satellite image showed a complex area, low pressure, the main center right down in through here, an occluded front with a couple of waves extending back into the southeast coast, and an upper level system, which is still up there today, responsible for this band of moisture from Norton Sound on up to the eastern Arctic coast, creating a little bit of areas of light snow and fog, especially on the Arctic coastal area up there. A lot of disorganized clouds out here over the Bering Sea, and then a front pushing eastward made it to, looks like, right over Adak here during the afternoon hours, about 3 o'clock or 1 o'clock, the last frame there. Snow showers following in behind, numerous snow showers moving into Shemya this afternoon. A break in advance of that, so had a little bit of sunshine there over the central Aleutians, Adak, and then looks like Atka this afternoon. Not too bad over on Alaska, at least on the lee side of the islands there. Was some rain and snow showers over the Alaska Peninsula today, but pretty good clearing here. Northeast Bristol Bay right up into the interior. This mostly mid and high level clouds with all the precipitation falling along the coast from Portage to Whittier, with the rainfall kind of getting socked in northwestern Prince William Sound, and several bands still moving northward here. Heaviest rain seemed to be moving into the Yakutat area. They're carrying light rain, occasionally moderate at times throughout much of the day. Another band here to the south, actually looks like two more that'll be moving up, and that's going to keep small craft advisories in tonight here for the North Gulf Coast and also along the southeast coast, mainly this evening. And rolling that through again, you can see that kind of a real several areas of low pressure here, and all of that moving northward with the moisture tonight, and then the upper level disturbance still up there today, giving areas of light snow and fog, but the winds beginning to increase up 15 to 30 miles an hour, east-northeasterlies, giving some areas of blowing snow, reduced visibilities down to 1 to 2 miles at times across portions of the North Slope and the Arctic coast. Even stronger winds coming around, blowing through the Bering Strait. Gusts 45 miles per hour at Tin City, the temperature just below zero, and that coming down across St. Lawrence Island. Not quite as high in the wind gusts there, but 15 to 25 mile per hour winds over the Pribilofs this morning, decreased to about 10 to 20, seems to be dying off there now during the afternoon hours. And on the chart today, here's that front out to the west late this morning, and then all the rain and snow showers actually pretty scattered here for the Alaska Peninsula. Same thing up over the interior. Most of the moisture along the coast, and then kind of gets enhanced in the upslope areas of the western Alaska Range on those eastern slopes. And but again, pretty nice here through the central interior, with temperatures rising into the upper 30s to mid 40s through the Tanana Valley. Some cases approaching 50 degrees there over northeast Bristol Bay. Gusty winds, you can see a few more lines on the map up there, tighter gradient responsible for those east-northeasterlies, gusting up to about 30 miles an hour. There are brisk wind advisories out tonight through tomorrow for the Arctic coast for northeast, east-northeasterlies up to 30 knots. And here's a trough coming on shore, and again, more moisture down to the south will be tracking up this evening and keeping the winds in the small craft advisory range, at least for tonight and possibly a portion of tomorrow. But we have that next one coming up here, so areas of light rain or rain and snow mixed over the inland areas, but again, most of the precipitation out along the coast, Kodiak Island, continuing wet again tonight, and then here's that next low center that'll track northward tomorrow, and small craft advisories out early in the day, and then as that pulls inland, they'll drop off to more southwesterly and lighten up. So the winds will be coming down tomorrow afternoon along the southeast coast. Very weak center here over the southwest interior, much the same pattern. Pretty good areas of clearing right through here, back up where that upper disturbance is. Chances of a little more widespread clouds with a risk of a snow shower or mixed rain and snow. Again, the North Gulf Coast really not looking too bad, but those winds picking up there along the Arctic coast from the east-northeast. Mostly easterlies here. Again, gusts possibly as high as 40 miles per hour, and becoming a little more northeasterly on the west side there. Much lighter, less gradient for the southeastern Chukchi Sea into Kotzebue Sound. Won't be nearly as windy as there will be up over the north slope in the Arctic coast there. Hit and miss snow showers, mostly hit and miss in some areas. May catch the Pribilofs there, but the winds you can see much lighter now. And a developing low here south of the southwest of, or just south of AKwx. That'll be developing and strengthening as it moves eastward and northeastward to, say, right over Unalaska on Tuesday. And enough gradient on the back side of that probably will bring in northwesterly gales, say about 40 knots, 45 miles an hour with higher gusts, and also getting a little windy ahead of the front. But it looks like the strongest winds will be on the back side of this with this area of high pressure building into the Russian Far East. And as this pulls off to the east on Wednesday, this gradient will expand eastward. Could see some strong wind headlines in the local forecast there for the Alaska Peninsula and eastern Aleutians. But that won't take place until probably late Tuesday night and Wednesday. Another system here bringing more rain and probably small craft advisories here to the south coast of the Panhandle. Looks like initially most of that moisture will be sliding into the central and southern Panhandle, but later on probably will make its way up towards Juneau and possibly into Lynn Canal. Temperatures today, this afternoon, 40s along all of the southeast coast, kind of a cool 41 there at Yakutat with all the rain, 43 at Valdez, Middleton Island, Cordova, about the same with 44, 48 down at Craig and Klawock with a 46 reading at Juneau, 40 degrees up in the Copper River Basin there at Copper Center, 41 over at Northway, 39 at Delta, Fairbanks up to 42, a 45 degree reading there at Nenana. Farther to the north, a little chillier with 30 degree readings at Fort Yukon and Bettles, Anaktuvuk 4 below zero, and the Arctic coast struggling to get to zero in some areas, although Barter Island rose to 1 above, but -5 at Barrow, 7 below at Point Lay, and 0 at Point Hope. Staying below zero today at Buckland and Kotzebue with -2. These are mid-afternoon temperatures, not the highs. -2 at Tin City, 11 degrees at Nome, with a 9 degree reading there at Unalakleet, and St. Michael at 14, and St. Mary's at 14 also. 43 today in McGrath. Contrast that with 37 down at Bethel. Off to the southwest, 50 degrees at King Salmon, 33 over at Togiak with 22 at St. Paul, 24 at St. George, and upper 30s to lower 40s for the Alaska Peninsula. 37 pretty common reading here for Cold Bay, Unalaska. Adak, Atka, 32, and those snow showers there at Shimia. For the lows tonight, below zero definitely here for the Arctic coast and portions of the North Slope, right down into the Bering Strait. Tin City forecast low of 11 below zero. Savunga 5 above, so the 0 degree isotherm south of Nome, but north of St. Lawrence Island. And teens here through the upper Yukon Valley, and teens to some cases upper 20s into the Tanana Valley. South of the mountains, high or lows tonight into the lower to mid 30s, warmest along the coast, and mostly 30s for the Panhandle, except extreme south may see lows closer to 40. 17, the forecast low for St. Paul, about the same for St. George. Otherwise, near freezing out over the Aleutians. Shimia dropping to 30, so whatever falls out there definitely will be in the form of snow. Same situation for Adak and Atka, but really not looking for a whole lot. And for the highs tomorrow, into the upper 30s here for the Aleutians, 21 for the Pribilofs, staying below zero, much like today, especially on the west side. East side may be rising above, but 45 to 50 for the Tanana Valley there, especially around the Fairbanks area. Cooler back to the west and mid 40s over toward the border. Mid to upper 40s here for south central Alaska, and again, some areas pushing up toward 50, mostly in the 40s for the Panhandle. Flying weather, marginal VFR across Dixon Entrance, Prince of Wales Island, and Annette, up the coastline and bulging inland towards Lynn Canal and Elfin Cove. Marginal VFR at times here along the North Gulf Coast. Any IFR looks like it'll be offshore. Kodiak Island looks good for some IFR on the eastern side of the island, and then that kind of branches off and extends northward up to Selawik and Ambler in the Kobuk Valley there. That extends eastward into the upper Yukon Valley, and another break for the Brooks Range North Slope, and then areas of IFR possible again with some blowing snow, patchy fog there for the eastern Arctic coast, but that offshore flow making for VFR conditions right out to the coastline and a little beyond there for the west side, and areas of marginal VFR from the Bering Strait down across St. Lawrence Island, but just catching the coastline of the Yukon Delta, Nunivak Island, occasionally marginal. IFR, definite possibility here, especially on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, and again around Dutch Harbor. And then a break, and then this lower condition coming in with the low pressure and frontal system out to the west. For Anaktuvik, marginal VFR at times tomorrow, but that again I think will be basically VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR, eastern entrances, otherwise VFR through the pass and into the valley. For the rainy forecast, same thing, VFR, except possible marginal VFR in the eastern entrance. And for windy, occasionally marginal at times throughout the day tomorrow. And Isabel for Monday could go either way, VFR or marginal at times, not necessarily a trend, it just probably will be off and on as far as marginal VFR goes. Optimistically forecasting VFR for Mentasta, I think they'll be in the clear. And for Tanita, just a chance of some marginal VFR on this eastern entrance, otherwise VFR through the pass to the west. And for Portage, IFR on the east side with marginal VFR elsewhere. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels at the surface here down south of the Pribilos early tomorrow morning, coming in across just about Cape Newenham, and then close to the coastline, a little above 2,000 feet through the central panhandle over to Kodiak Island. And from there, taking a look at icing, below 10 to 12,000 feet. Back through here, more convective in the precipitation, more convective in nature, so that'll probably be rime or mixed icing, more of a rime type icing, but still could be some areas of mixed, just isolated moderate there over the southeast coast, all below 10 to 12,000 feet. Icing threats up here to the north of that persistent upper level system, just to the west there, below 6,000 feet, and some more icing chances over the western Aleutians. And the winds aloft, jet stream well to the south here all the way across the Pacific, takes a turn to the north, but even south of the Queen Charlotte's upper level low still in this position. They'll be circulating the showers northward tomorrow, and then looking for that next disturbance out through here to come up to the eastern Aleutians on Tuesday. And at 9,000 feet, low pressure right over the Seward Peninsula, but only 10 to 20 knot flow there across the interior, but a lot stronger along the Arctic coast. Easterlies, 40 to 45 knots here at 9,000 feet, dropping back to 20 knots there around Point Hope. And 25 knot winds, a couple of impulses here, one inverted trough swinging back like that. So that'll probably bring possibly small craft advisories to the eastern Gulf Coast and along the Panhandle. But again, those will be dying off on the south coast in the afternoon. 3,000 feet, much the same pattern, east-southeasterlies, 10 to 20 knots across the Gulf of Alaska back into the Panhandle, and 5 to 15 knots here basically from the east or east-southeast over the interior. Got a low center. Again, looks like over the Kuskokwim Valley, and another one up there near Kivalina. And the strongest winds for sure will be up here along the central and eastern Arctic coast, some cases even the west side there, 30 to 40 knots all the way across. Lighter northwest winds here, 10 to 20 knots, not terribly strong. There's a next system that'll be moving northeastward, 35 knot winds. When that pulls up to the Alaska Peninsula or the eastern Aleutians, then you'll get that stronger south-northwest wind coming in behind it on Wednesday and possibly Thursday. Turbulence, look for light to isolated moderate or occasional widespread moderate chop here along the eastern Arctic coast, with isolated moderate here in the gold shaded area over to about Cape Lisburne or Point Hope. Could be some light to isolated moderate mechanical turbulence there for the Alaska Peninsula. and then some more moderate chop way out toward the Shimmy and Attu area. And after the break, the segment, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Good evening. I'm Harry Keeling, and on behalf of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and Alaska Public Media, welcome to Hangar Flying. This evening, our guest is Jeff Oshinsky. Jeff has had a distinguished career in federal service for 27 years, with 17 years in Alaska. In the early 90s, he was the manager at the ARTCC, later managed at the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit and the Anchorage Volcano Advisory Center. He's now the Deputy Chief for Environmental and Scientific Services Division. In short, the Regional Weatherman. Jeff, welcome to Hangar Flying.
Oh, great. Thanks. It's great to be here, Harry.
Oh, welcome back. You've been on the program before.
Thanks, yes.
Obviously, weather forecasting is extremely important to pilots and operators and people involved in aviation. And you, the National Weather Service, has got a big operation up here in Alaska. I think latest numbers I saw were 240 people and 19 stations. It's a big effort. And I got to tell you, I appreciate what you guys do. You've got a tough challenge, and it makes doing the professional job that you do contributes significantly to aviation safety. So thanks very much. Let's talk a little bit about one initiative that you and I had talked about with future potential. So describe some of the modernization efforts.
Well, Harry, we're in the process now of modernizing our aviation services in Alaska. And what that means is basically going from an old way of doing business, of typing up forecasts and creating graphics by hand, essentially, to going to this digital database. And what this means, it will allow us to be able to derive a whole variety of products, basically whatever the users really want, from this digital database. And the beauty of that is all our offices in Alaska will be tied to this database. So whether you're a pilot or a mariner or whatever forecast you happen to look at, it's all being pulled from the same database and will be consistent.
So give me an idea, give our viewers an idea what a new product might look like. What exactly will it do that we can't have done now?
Well, I think the biggest change that we're going to see is we're going to see probably better resolution in the product. So in other words, we have the standard products like the MVFR, IFR flying charts and turbulence and icing. I think what we'll be able to see in the future is we'll be able to see more resolution and granularity in the forecasts. So we'll be able to forecast more distinct layers of icing and turbulence, and we'll also be able to put these products out on a more frequent basis.
Now, one of the things you mentioned to me, if I got it right, I think is very futuristic. And let's see if I can describe it right. So right now, if I'm coming back into Anchorage, I can get a terminal forecast for Anchorage, or I can get a terminal forecast for Elmendorf. But I think you're talking about maybe someday in the future, dirt strip XYZ with, you can give me an idea what the weather's going to be there.
I think so. It's pretty exciting with this digital database. Part of the initiative is to improve our computer modeling. And of course, the computer modeling sort of drives how well we can produce forecasts. And as we get better and more specific models for Alaska that show the differences geographically, we'll be able to push that into this process. And so I think, this may be a few years out, but I think we'll be at a point sometime where a pilot can take his, we'll say his cursor of his mouse on his computer and move it to any location in the state and click on that spot that he or she is interested in, and get a forecast that'll have aviation weather parameters for that site.
Wow.
I really do think that we'll get there in a few years.
That's huge. I mean, when you add that to the introduction of weather cams, it's really going to make an impact.
It's going to open the doors. We keep saying that this is a major paradigm shift in aviation forecasts, and the really exciting part for us here in Alaska is we're on the cutting edge. We're sort of the pathfinder for these digital aviation services. Nobody else is doing this in the country, and all eyes are focused on us up here in Alaska.
I'm going to ask this last question. about forecasting. Is it science, black magic, or luck, or all three?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I saw a cartoon repeatedly throughout my career that said meteorology is 60% science and 40% art. And I've seen the numbers flipped around, 60% art, 40% science. And so the big joke is that it's sort of a combination of all those things. When you talk to forecasters, they often talk about having a gut feeling. We're trained to understand patterns, and weather patterns dictate certain weather conditions. So, you know, many of us can look at a weather map and look at a pattern and say, I don't think they're going to get the rain in Anchorage. I think it's going to be a turbulence event on the Chugach or whatever, just based on the weather pattern. And a small change in that pattern can totally change the weather for a given location.
Wow. Well, all kidding aside, I appreciate what you do and your fellow forecasters and the whole weather business. And I think you've saved a lot of people and prevented a lot of accidents. So thanks very much for your efforts.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks for being on the program.
Thanks a lot, Harry.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed tonight's program. And again, I want to remind you, November 15th, we're going to have our fall safety seminar. That's Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, November 15th. More details to follow. Until next time, fly safe.
Welcome back. With the sea ice, there is some ice 20 to 30 nautical miles northwest of St. Paul Island, but the ice edge is about 20 miles north of where it was yesterday. It's actually melded back a little bit there, and not expecting any ice to reach the Pribilofs into the marine zone there, especially with the diminishing wind conditions. Bristol Bay now appears to be ice-free, and the sea ice conditions in Cook Inlet will continue to diminish over the upcoming week. Anyway, on to small craft advisories here for the coast. More easterly up on the north coast, 20 knots on the south coast. Lighter, more variable winds at about 15 here over the inside waters. Seas running 4 to 5 feet and anywhere from 12 to 14 feet here. Pretty uniform out along the coast. And then for Tuesday, that next front coming in, the south side or the southern coast will see those winds kick up to about 25 knots. So small craft advisories coming back there. Otherwise south to southeast and lighter as you go north. Inside waters, southeast 15 there for Clarence Strait, and southerlies at about 15 all the way up to the north. For Cook Inlet, northeast pretty light north of the Forelands, just 10 knots. Pick it up to maybe 15 down into the southern inlet. Easterlies at 20, Barren Islands, Kamishak Bay, northeast 20 on the east side of Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, Chillicothe Strait northeast at 20. Otherwise, easterlies running at about 20 knots there for the North Gulf Coast, and Prince William Sound northeast at 15. Then those really lighten up. Tuesday, a light wind day just about everywhere. Could be a little brisk here along the east side of Kodiak. Westerlies at 20 knots, 15 knots for Chillicothe Strait. Otherwise, light variable winds for the Barren Islands here, back into Kamishak Bay, north possibly, or just light variable winds for all of Cook Inlet, and northeast at 10 for Prince William Sound, east at 15 for the North Gulf Coast. Out of Bristol Bay, westerlies at 15, more of a northwest wind here, and stronger on the Pacific side, 20-knot northwesterlies there from Sitkinak all the way over to Sandpoint and Cape Sarachev. Then bring some small craft advisories in. Southerlies 25 knots here on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Easterlies at 25 on the Bering Sea side. Pretty light winds there for Bristol Bay, light and variable, but trending into the east as the afternoon wears on. South just 15 there, southwest of Sitkinak. And out in the Aleutians for tomorrow, ahead of that next frontal and developing low, depending on where it tracks, southeasterlies 20 to 25 knots, northwest 25 behind that. Lighter winds towards Shimia, and westerlies 15 to 20 knots for the Fox Islands. Then on Tuesday, looks like that low center, if it moves right up over on Alaska, you'll have westerlies there at 20 on the south side, small craft advisory, easterlies on the north, but a kind of a narrow area here of gale force northwesterlies following that low center in behind, with small craft advisories all the way over to Adak from the northwest, and then lighter northerlies under high pressure out over the western Aleutians. And for the southwest coast tomorrow, northwest 15, Cape Newenham back across Nunivak Island, northerlies at 20 for St. Lawrence Island. And actually tonight there's a heavy freezing spray warning out for the Pribilof Islands and this eastern portion of the offshore area, in fact all the way up into the southwest coast there in the open water areas. But that's for tonight. Tomorrow you can see the winds dropping off too much for even carry freezing spray, 10 knots there at St. Paul. And then those will pick back up to about 20 knots, especially for St. George on Tuesday. Northerlies 15 here for the remainder of the Bering Sea. Pretty light there for Kuskokwim Bay and south of Nunivak Island. Up along the Arctic coast, brisk wind advisories everywhere tomorrow, actually picking up to that tonight, except here for the southeastern portion of the Chukchi Sea. Kotzebue Sound much lighter, west-northwest at 15. And then that will lighten up to include Cape Lisburne and Point Hope here, and that marine zone coming down to 15 knots, but east-northeasterlies 25, and then no change here on the eastern Arctic coast. Looks like easterlies at about 30 through Tuesday. And for tonight, again, several impulses continue to come northward. That's going to keep the small craft advisory winds and occasional rain and showers along the North Gulf Coast, but that really thins out as it moves inland with not much moisture making its way too far in, at least not past the coast range. Drying out possibly here over the southern panhandle, but that next low will bring some more wind and rain up with it as it pulls up tomorrow. Hit and miss showers over the interior of a mixture of rain or snow. Same thing over the Bering Sea, really lose the winds, but a lot of the leftover clouds and some light snow showers of mixed rain or snow. But this next system pulling northeastward and begins to deepen fairly good there, so look for some stronger winds and definitely rain. Eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula. Another low here spreading more rain and an increase in the winds as well, especially along the southern southeast coast, and then that should overspread the area Tuesday night. Same thing over the interior here with some hit and miss snow showers. Let's look at Alaska weather. Thanks for joining us.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.